You know, one thing that's kind of neat here, if you figure this thing weighs about 6 tons, we got 12 guys on it now, so each guy is moving 500 pounds of rock right now. Each individual man. Not too bad.
Can I make another point? I would say that to turn the moai on the frame we designed doesn't require the intricate ladder that we have here. We could have done it in a simpler way.
Vince's side experiment is beginning to raise the temperature and turn the archaeologists and engineers from critics to advocates of their own theories.
Having 3 beams for rotation, the A-frame was just as fine, as good for the rotation part.
Did you do a rotation with the A-frame?
We didn't, but we could. We could.
But you didn't?
We didn't.
You used a crane for it, if I recall correctly.
We did exactly what the experiment required.
Well, it may be, but I'm just saying, it's easy to say it's perfect for it, but if you don't do it, you don't know. I said this was perfect last night, but now I've done it, and I say, whoops, maybe
now you say it's not only not perfect, it's a mess. Look at it.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's a disaster.
Let's not tear down anything. I'm just looking at the principles. The principles are that whenever...
And by the way, I'd like to correct, to show you how poor an engineer I am, I'd like to correct a comment I made a moment ago on camera. I said each of these men was moving 500 pounds. If that's a 6-ton rock, each man is moving 1,000 pounds. Now you can call it poorly designed if you want, but you had 40 people to move 9 tons. I've got 12 people moving 6 tons. You didn't do that.
Excuse me. You've got 12 people turning 6 tons.
Well, we moved it too. You saw it. You saw it move. No, you saw it move.
I did.
Yeah.
You're right. I saw it move. Congratulations.
Well, sure.
Could similar arguments have divided the ancient stone movers?
The whole idea here, we're trying to move an 80-ton rock. You better make most use of your people.
And did the early islanders fight over the politics of moving sacred stone? During the 1600s, life on Easter Island was in crisis. The island had become overpopulated with thousands of people, all competing for the dwindling supply of food. Warfare broke out. And in the ensuing power struggle, there was growing rivalry to carve larger statues to appropriate the spiritual power of mana.
When the whole society embarked in this religious sculpture compulsion, reducing the amount of people that was actually producing food, for example, creating some sort of imbalance that at the very end led to a crisis and to the collapse of the whole culture.
Resources were quickly disappearing. The last precious trees were cut down as the demand for timber to raise and transport moai escalated. Ancestral statues were knocked down by the warring factions. In time, the population would all but disappear. The great civilization of Easter Island had collapsed. A fallen moai lies beside a stone ramp leading to an ahu platform. Claudio walks along the back wall. This ahu, abandoned in mid-construction, shows how the islanders moved their moai onto the elevated platforms.
The main device that was used to lift statues was a stone ramp.
Ramps were made from the limitless supply of lava rock scattered all over the island. Ascending the stone incline, a moai would finally arrive at its high pedestal stone, which often overlooked the sea.
This statue was going to be placed in that ahu using the ramp just described, and we know that the process was never finished because the eye sockets were never opened. Moais are completely finished at the quarry several miles from here, except for the eye sockets, which were open when the moai was erected on top of the ahu. At that very moment, it became alive and acquired the supernatural power and the ability to communicate to the ancestral world.
At the beginning of another day of testing Joanne's moai transport theories, Vince surveys the ramp that was made for the experiments.
So Claudio, the way I get it, the platform out at the end where those guys are standing is what remains after the project, but this is just a construction ramp, is that right?
Most probably statues were approached to the platforms using this run.
Sure, because in most cases you can't get to the platform from the rear anyway because of the sea walls and so forth.
Yeah, they're very close to the coast,
Sure.
and most of them have very high back walls.
Gotcha.
Seaside walls.
Right.
So most probably.
Today's goal will be to transport the Moai up the ramp, which is paved with laterally placed logs. They start on flat terrain in front of the ramp. More logs are brought in and placed in position like the ties of a trackless railroad bed. It takes a lot of trees to make a wood road just 30 yards in length. It seems plausible that the trees of the island could disappear altogether in the act of moving sacred stone. Thick palm forests blanketed the island when the first settlers arrived. Pollen analysis shows that a species of palm strong enough to move Moai, called Jubea chilensis, once flourished here. In their escalating efforts to move and raise giant statues, the islanders cut down the last of their trees. Long before the first Europeans arrived in 1726, the island had been stripped bare. Not one Jubea chilensis palm tree remains today. Could it have been the obsession with erecting giant statues that led to Easter Island's ecological and social catastrophe? The next day, the team faces the challenge of moving the Moai the last 6 feet to the pedestal stone. Joanne's team will now test a different method that gives extra mechanical advantage to the Moai movers. The team has been reduced to 20 people.
They've actually done something quite clever here. What they've done now is they've tied the rope from the sled to a lever, a big lever beam, and they've got a big crew over here pulling the lever beam with a rope attached much higher on the pole. And the reason that's so smart is because they get a huge mechanical advantage. In order to move the sled 1 foot here, they'll have to pull 4 feet here, but they'll pull with 4 times the force. So in effect, it's like quadrupling the number of people pulling on the load. So as they pull the pullers back here, they basically have 4 times the force working on the sled by doing it this way.
It's a good method. We needed a stronger hand.
I was waiting for something to break.
Well, we were
so
all
we
waiting
can learn
for
from it.
We were all waiting for that, and we
was
got
good.
it here. So.
With a smaller workforce, it has taken an entire day to move the final 6 feet. The last few days of experiments have led Joanne to conclude that there may have been more than one method for moving Moai.
I have learned that the statues lend themselves very well to manipulation. They're well balanced, they're well designed, you can attach rigs to them, you can change them. I think people would think on their feet and develop methods for moving these statues that were adapted to each individual statue.
Many Moai on Easter Island had top knots known as pukao placed on their heads. They are thought to signify the headdresses that Rapa Nui chiefs wore. Red cylindrical pukao lie near the fallen moai all over the island, and they were carved from this ancient quarry of red scoria stone. Raphael carves an authentic pukao for the replica moai. He uses a basalt toki, the tool used by the ancient sculptors to carve island stone. Raphael passes on the age-old technique to Santi.
Raphael says it is the scoria rock which is used to make the pukao because it is light and people are able to take this pukao across the island to different sites and place it on top of the moai.
Rapa Nui society supported specialist craftsmen. The master carvers held an elevated status in the community.
So there were master carvers who were dedicated to just carve pukaos. They never worked with the rush of time. There was no time frame. It's all based on mana and the religion. And in our modern time, we'll succeed, I think.
The team must now figure out how to raise the moai. They use levers to lift the load inch by inch, while stones are carefully placed underneath. Slowly, the moai will be jacked up to a vertical position. The pukao is now ready to be added to the load. Not all moai had pukao, and we don't know how the islanders raised them onto the statues. The Rapa Nui men devise a simple pulley system for rolling the one-ton pukao up the short ramp. Pukao and moai will now be joined together by rope and secured for the raising.
Tomorrow we'll see them levering it up, how easy it really is, and it should go very quickly. I think this is the way it was done.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's also it's possible to raise the two together, but it's also possible to raise the statue first, and then if the statue is deserving of a pukao, maybe then they put the pukao second.
But the problem is when you do the statue and then do the pukao, you have to do everything twice. This took days, and then you have 2 more days of doing it.
Claudio is the archaeologist in charge of the raising. He hopes the moai will be raised in 1 day.
By 3 o'clock, it's going to be very high, but 4 o'clock it should be up. 5 o'clock. It's not a promise. So now those logs now are not.
The work takes on its own rhythm, and a steady stream of ideas come from the onlooking experts.
3 points at least. I mean, the wood is helping.
It's in good position.
The pile of rocks jacking up the moai gradually grows higher. Zvi measures the team's progress by calculating the moai's angle of incline.
30? Exactly 30.
You're off.
How much?
We're going to go with about 34.
Oh.
What's if you take the angle of the blade from the
They are using the same instrument, but somehow cannot agree on the angle.
It's pointing exactly at 30. What do we approximate? It's exactly 30.
We got about 31 degrees and 24 seconds.
Yeah.
now really moved from about 30 degrees. We're now approaching probably 40, and at 45 it will be much lighter.